What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Welcome back to the Respawn, where I answer your questions. Today we're talking new ultimates, new hero categories, and more. Today's video is sponsored by Audible. You can get a free audiobook to keep forever and support the channel by using the link down below. Side note, sometimes ad blockers don't like the link, so you might have to disable it for a second. Today I'm recommending The Martian by Andy Weir. You know how they say the book is better than the movie? Well, in this case, the movie was good, but the book is just so much better. There is a ton of stuff that you can find in the book that wasn't available in the movie, and also a special note to the narrator, R.C. Bray, who does an absolutely fantastic job. Once more, The Martian, you can check it out, download it for free, or any other book in Audible's library. Let's get into the questions. If Maximilian does end up in the game as a playable character, what do you think his abilities and ultimate would be? I think it depends on what role they put him in. I could see him as being either a backline DPS or a support, and the reason is because he's kind of like the banker of Talon, right? He doesn't seem like the type to get his hands dirty doing something. He's going to send out minions or underlings in order to get that stuff done. So I don't see them giving him a big plasma rifle or something and saying, okay, now you're gonna attack with this. His attacks and his abilities and ultimate are probably going to be closer to what Zenyatta has, whereas they're a little bit more kind of mythical, magical in their appearance. It doesn't mean that they're actually magical, it's just kind of how they look, as opposed to giving him like a big weapon like Bastion or Orisa have. Now, it's possible that when the event goes on, we might actually see him as a boss, in which case, whatever his abilities and his attacks are in that event, that might actually be what he gets when he's finally added to the game. Although I think it would be funny if in future events, when you can play as Maximilian, and then you go through the event, and you fight Maximilian as the boss, that would be kind of funny. They might actually even put like a special voice line in for that. Do you think a hero with an ultimate which can call in an AI strike team like Bob would work? Essentially what you're asking about is just having a bunch of turrets appear in the game, because that's essentially what Bob is. He's just a big turret. The AI in Overwatch is incredibly bad. So what they have for Bob and for the turret is it just attacks whatever happens to be the closest, or whatever Torbjorn has attacked. For example, the turret will change targets and focus on that. So what you're asking is just summoning in a bunch of turrets that would attack the closest target. I think that's perfectly fine, and it could work, but, you know, it might have to be changed a little bit to be balanced, but yeah, it certainly could work. Should Blizzard let the characters like Widow, Ashe, Soldier go prone? No. One of the main reasons why Bastion is the lowest picked character in the game and why he's absolute garbage in almost all situations, the fact that he's getting minimal usage in the Overwatch League doesn't change anything. He's still the least played character in the entire game, is because he is stationary. You do not want to be stationary in Overwatch. Mobility is king. So if you were to take these characters like Ashe and Soldier and Widow and let them just lay down and become stationary, that would make them even worse. No, you don't want that. You need to be able to move around. Should the level to play comp be raised to 50? Yes, I think at least up to 50. This would not completely eliminate Smurfs. Obviously, there are a lot of accounts that already exist, but it might discourage some future people from trying to create new Smurf accounts. If they have to work more in order to actually get the account, then, you know, they might not want to do it. Now, this is actually one of the things that I mentioned in a recent video where I called it the plan to save Overwatch, because I know a lot of people just incessantly complain about the issues and the problems with the game and the competitive ladder, but I made the video, the plan to save Overwatch, and I actually brought up and proposed some very simple solutions that are not going to completely fix the game, but they would certainly improve it and improve the competitive ladder, and it would require a very, very minimal effort on behalf of Blizzard in order to actually implement these changes, and they would have a maximum impact. So if you haven't watched that video yet, the plan to save Overwatch, go and check it out, and make sure you share that video with your friends and everybody else. Should Blizzard divide the roles even more, like DPS into hit scan and projectile, tanks into main and bruiser, support into main and off? Yes, I think that this is something that definitely should be added. I've been talking about this for a while. I've made other videos in the past about it. Now, it doesn't mean they need to have more main categories, right? They can still have the 3 primary, which is going to be the tank, the damage, and the healing, but they just need to break it up and have a little bit better of a description on what the characters are capable of doing. Believe it or not, there are far too many players who think that a Roadhog is just as acceptable as a tank where Reinhardt would be. And they try to run a Roadhog or a Zarya, and they get absolutely destroyed. And to them, they just don't quite understand. Like, well, he's a tank, right? Or Hammond. He's a tank. Well, no. They're in the tank category, but they don't function the same as a Winston or a Reinhardt or an Orisa. There's fundamentally different roles. Same thing when you have multiple DPS and you have multiple flankers or multiple snipers, right? Like, there definitely should be subcategories, absolutely. Is there ever a possibility to have an option where we can make our character look left-handed from the first person? I think this would be a great idea. CSGO and other FPS games already do this. They allow you to change the size of your HUD. They allow you to shrink some of the things and move stuff around. I think this definitely would be a good idea for Overwatch as well. Give the players more customization on what their user interface is on the screen. And one of those things is shifting it. Now, obviously, for characters like Reaper and Tracer and stuff, it wouldn't matter because, you know, it's on both sides all the time anyways. But I definitely think that more of those customization options should be available. How do you think a crossbow could work in Overwatch? I think it would work fine. I mean, generally, the way that you balance a crossbow versus a bow is you make the crossbow do a little bit more damage, but it has a slower rate of fire. Now, Hanzo's already does a lot of damage, so, I mean, the trade-off could be that he doesn't have to charge it, right? Because it's a crossbow, there's no charging. You don't have to wait for him to pull the string back. So instead, it would just automatically fire at full strength all the time. It would just have a slower rate of fire. So, yeah, it could definitely work. I'm in low diamond. What are the best characters to play? In low diamond, you want to start playing whatever the current meta is, and the current meta is still GOATS comp. I know there are people trying to say that it's bunker or it's this or that. No, the current meta is still very much GOATS comp, and it's probably going to be that way for at least a little while. So you should probably be playing characters that will fill into GOATS comp, or at least are good against GOATS comp, because you're not always going to be going against GOATS, and you're not always going to have your team that's willing to play GOATS, so you need to kind of modify it a little bit, but especially if you're trying to climb in rank, because if you're able to go from low diamond to master, you're going to start playing against people who are in high master and GM, and they're going to be playing GOATS comp, and you need to be able to play those things. Why are melee heroes so hard to balance? Because they're incredibly powerful against hit scan and projectile characters. When you're playing as Reinhardt, Brigitte, or Genji with his ultimate, you don't have to aim for the enemy, you just look in their general direction, press the attack, and you're going to hit them. Whereas the enemy who's playing hit scan or projectile, they have to track you, they have to flick to you, and the closer you are, the more difficult that becomes. This is one of the things that bad Tracer players do. They try to blink and get right up point blank next to an enemy, and then they have extreme difficulty actually tracking on that enemy. There's a certain sweet spot that you want to have with Tracer between her and the target that you're going after, and there's a distance where you can have your optimal tracking and damage at the same time. But when you're playing a melee character, you just get right up in their face and you just hold down the button, and you're just going to keep hitting them, and the other person is going to have a very difficult time kind of evading your damage, but at the same time dealing their own damage. So it makes it incredibly difficult, and that's why Genji, who is a DPS with the sword initially, they had to revert him to a projectile character because the DPS with the sword was just way too good. So they turned it into the ultimate and they made him a projectile. I would be pretty surprised if they ever add a DPS character whose primary attack is a melee, as opposed to something that's just on an ability. I think if they add any more melee characters, it's still probably going to be in the support or the tank role. Now with Reaper being improved, do you see him being a viable pick in the upper brackets? No. Reaper is absolute garbage in the upper brackets. None of the changes that they made had any impact whatsoever on his viability in the upper bracket. The lifesteal change made him way too strong in the lower bracket, and the shadow step change they made has no impact at all. It's still garbage. When Baptiste throws his immortality field, does the enemy gain ult charge when firing at low health players, since technically no damage is being dealt? No, they do not gain any ult charge because no damage is happening. It's kind of like attacking a Zenyatta when he's in Transcendence. You're not actually dealing any damage, so you don't gain any ult charge. Also, Reaper doesn't gain any lifesteal either for the same reason. He's not dealing damage, so he doesn't gain any lifesteal. Do you think the medic's Uber charge would work in Overwatch? I don't think so. Nano Boost is already really strong when you're doubling up on the ultimate, so a Reaper or a Genji or a Pharah, when you're doubling that up with a Nano Boost, it becomes incredibly difficult to take out that character when they're using their ultimate. If you were to add an ability or an ultimate into the game that made a character completely immune for a certain amount of time and still allowed that character to do everything that they normally would, to attack, to move, to use their abilities and use their ultimate or all that other stuff, then I just think it would be way too powerful. Like, you would just combo it all the time. You would always combo the Pharah with the Uber charge. You would always combo the Reaper with the Uber charge, or the Genji Blade with the Uber charge. Like, there would never be a reason to not do that, because it would pretty much guarantee you a free team wipe. Because even under the effects of the Immortality drone, you can still put them to sleep, you can stun them, you can destroy the drone and then kill the Genji or whatever, or you can just kind of move away from it or something. But if you were to make a character fully, truly invulnerable to everything and still allow them to play as normal, that I just think that would be way too strong for this game. Will Havana be added during or after the Archives event? It will be added after. What's going to happen is they're going to release the event, and we're going to get to play Havana or a special version of it during the Storm Rising event itself. And then maybe later on in the week, or possibly the following week, they're going to add the Havana map, the normal one, onto the PTR, and then it will be tested to find out what's going on, if there are any issues, and how the win rate is for attack defense and all that sort of stuff. And then after several weeks, they'll probably put it onto the live version of the game, and then you can play it in quick play, and it'll be in arcade, and then it will go into competitive about 2 weeks later. So it's still going to be a little while. If you're playing on console, you're not going to get to play the normal version of it until it gets added to the live game. But if you're on PC, then you can at least test it on the PTR, probably pretty quick after the event goes live. Why do you think that Overwatch's official YouTube channel doesn't listen to the Overwatch League fans about wanting longer Overwatch League highlights? It has nothing to do with not listening to the people who want longer highlights. It has to do with the fact that Blizzard signed a $90 or $100 million deal with Twitch, and that is that Twitch will be the main provider of the Overwatch League content. So they're not going to upload highlights onto a YouTube channel, which is a competitive platform. Now, they could upload extra highlights and all sorts of stuff on their Twitch channel if they wanted to. I don't know if they're doing that or not. I don't think they are. But they're not going to ever upload the full games or extended highlights on YouTube. Or at least I don't think they are, because, again, they signed a massive deal with Twitch, and they want you to go to Twitch to watch the videos. That's going to be all the questions for this week. Thanks again to my sponsor, Audible. You can get a free audiobook using the link down below. And also, thank you to everyone who submitted a question. If you want to submit yours for the next Respawn, then this coming Saturday, I'll post the question card on my YouTube community tab, and that's where you can post your question. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.